Make your retirement savings immune from taxes, inflation, and market volatility. Because about 95% of Americans following the herd, putting money in traditional IRAs or 401ks, are in danger of outliving their money due to those three dangers. So let's talk about the best way to not outlive your money in retirement. I want you to ponder the answers to these four questions. Are you ready? Did you or somebody you know lose money in 2008 during the Great Recession, the second time in that decade that people lost 40% of their money in the market, especially in IRAs and 401ks? Okay. Did you or somebody you know lose money? The second question, okay, do you think that a crash like that or a recession like that is going to happen again? Now, most people agree, yes, okay. Well, third question, do you want to have happen next time what happened last time to your money when that occurs? Most people go, absolutely not. So here's the fourth question. What are you doing differently with your money? Have you repositioned your money so that you're not subject to that? And then people go, oh my heavens. No, my advisor is continuing to tell me, hang in there, keep my money in the market. Because look, the market always comes back, even if it takes years to do it. Folks, please listen to what I'm going to share with you in this episode. Back in 2009, the year after that 2008 crash, Time magazine had a cover story. And it said, it's time to retire the 401k. And do something better instead. Now, Stephen Gandel, who's the author of that article, said that the 401k was a rotten idea, a very poor repository for our retirement reserves. In fact, later on in 2017, the original champions of the 401k lamented the day they ever came up with that idea, because too many people began to rely on that defined contribution plan. The employers loved it because they were off the hook. They didn't have to provide defined benefit plans like pensions for school teachers and what have you. It was all up to you and where you chose to put your money, and if you made money or didn't make money, or if you're in a higher bracket or lower bracket, that was on your shoulders. Well, the problem is so many Americans just followed the herd and put money in tax-deferred IRAs and 401ks thinking they were going to be in a lower tax bracket when they retired. But where do most asset managers put your money? In the market. Now, that might be okay for retirement planning, but at retirement planning is something totally different than what you did for retirement. When people would come to me prior to retiring with their yet to be taxed IRAs and 401ks, I would go, what are you thinking? Because they would be way too top heavy with their money in those yet to be taxed IRAs and 401ks invested in a volatile market. Wall Street was never designed to create predictable income. That's why the financial services industry came up with the 4% rule, because Dalbar says the average retiree with money in the market is only really earning 3.5% because they're buying and selling at the wrong times, because they're panicking. Every time the market starts to go down 15 or 20%, they sell low, and then they wait, and then they buy high. So if they bought and held, they might average 9 and net 6% after tax, but they're only earning 3.5%. So that's the 4% rule. They only want you to pull out 4%, which will slowly deplete your nest egg, but not before your LE, your life expectancy. A 4% rule or payout is unacceptable to me. I don't accumulate $1 million nest egg to have a measly $40,000 a year of income, when I know I can get $80,000 to $100,000, which is a lot more, and it's tax-free. So in order to not outlive your money, because if you're restricted to a 4% payout, you will outlive your money because you're not netting 4%. You pull out 40 grand and in a 33% bracket, you're not netting 40 grand. Let's just take a 25% bracket. You have to pay 25%, $10,000 in tax. You're only netting $30,000 to buy gas and groceries, prescriptions, and golf green fees. And so you have to subtract maybe the asset management fees. That's another 1% or 10 grand. You're only netting 2% after taxes and fees. That's pathetic. And so it's taxes that cause most people to outlive their money, because if you had $1 million nest egg, even earning 10%, theoretically you could pull out 100 grand a year out of $1 million nest egg without depleting principal. But if you're in a 33% bracket, you have to pull out 50% more money. You have to pull out $150,000, pay tax of a third of that, 50 grand, to net 100,000. You may say, well, I don't need 100,000 to buy gas from groceries. I could get by on 50,000. Well, the second danger is inflation. At the current real rate of inflation, you're going to need 100,000 in less than 5 years to buy what 50,000 buys today. And so the first danger is taxes that cause most people to outlive their money. The second is inflation, which is like a hidden tax, because the cost of living doubles, so you have to keep taking out more money to buy the same gallons of gas and loaves of bread that you bought 5 years before. And if you understand the rule of 72, you take the real rate of inflation, which right now has been actually more like 15%. The cost of living will double every 4.8 years. Just look at it with the price of gasoline and eggs and groceries and real estate. People know inflation is not 6, 7, or 8, or 9% that the government reports. And that's because ever since the early 1980s, when they decided they could not afford to pay Social Security recipients the real CPI, the Consumer Price Index cost of living increase, they changed the way they reported inflation. And so if you look at the reported rate of inflation compared to the real rate of inflation, there's a huge difference. You can usually double or triple whatever the government says the rate of inflation is. So when they say the rate of inflation is 9 or 10, it's really more like 27 to 30%. And you can see it in the price of goods and services, okay? So taxes, inflation. What's the third danger that causes most people to outlive their money? Market volatility. And so what I have done for years as a financial strategist and retirement planning specialist is help people make themselves immune from that. So we do that by seizing 3 opportunities. Okay. The number one opportunity I think every retiree ought to seize is to transfer, reposition as much of their retirement resources into financial vehicles that are totally tax-free, not tax-deferred. That means you have to roll the money out, not over. You roll the money over from a 401k to an IRA, and then you leave it until you're age 72 and take RMDs. You're just compounding the tax. You're not saving tax. You're actually increasing it, and people are flabbergasted when I compute how much they're going to pay in tax through their life expectancy, their spouses, and then as it transfers down to their non-spousal heirs. They're shocked. And they say, well, why do they tell you to do that on CNBC? Well, who's funding CNBC? Government revenues. Why would they want to kill a partnership where they continue to get a third of everything you will ever earn on those IRAs or 401ks, or they can change their piece of it to 40% or 50%, which is what Biden's doing right now to cover his deficit spending. They get to change. They get to call the shots. I don't want a business partner like Uncle Sam. So the key is you want to get the money out and the taxes over and done with sooner than later, and reposition that net after-tax money into something that's going to be tax-free from now on. What is that? It's a laser fund, as you will see. And so that's the first thing, switch to tax-free. Now, I'd recommend that 40 to 60% of your income in retirement not even show up on the front page of your 1040 tax return. People ask, well, is that legit? Absolutely. Come on. Ever since 1986 tax reform, there's only 3 types of income Americans pay income tax on. Earned income, which is salaries and wages, passive income, which is like rental or lease income, and portfolio income, which is interest and dividends. If you have income that's not one of those 3, there's nowhere on a tax return to put it. It's tax-free. It's not a loophole. And my favorite vehicle has been a sacred tax-free cash cow in the Internal Revenue Code now for over 108 years, protected under 3 sections of the code you can learn about in this book I want to gift you at the end of the episode. Section 72E, 7702, and 101A. So it's the only vehicle in the Internal Revenue Code that allows you to accumulate money tax-free, access that money tax-free, including all the gain, and when you ultimately die, anything you leave behind blossoms, increases in value, and transfers income tax-free. I've taught advanced continuing education to CPAs and tax attorneys for years. I've always asked them, show me any other vehicle, financial vehicle in the Internal Revenue Code that does that. They've yet to do that. So when I do that, I'm immune from taxes. Now, when I put it into an indexed universal life policy, I am linking my returns to an index or indices. And these are allowing you to be able to earn a rate of return that is equal to or greater than the inflation rate at the time because you're investing in the things that are inflating. I don't like inflation any more than you probably do, but it doesn't hurt me. It helps me. So I've always been able to outpace inflation. In 1980, after the Carter years, inflation at 10%, I was getting credited on my universal life 15.5%. You go to the COVID-19 pandemic, 2020 to 2021, inflation hit 15%. We were getting credited 61.33%. Some people only got credited 25%, but 25% is better than the 15% inflation. Other people, they were going backwards with their investments because the rate of inflation was greater than the rate of return. You need to outpace inflation. The third danger is market volatility. Now, how do you do that? That's by using indexing. Now, I'm not talking about index mutual funds. I'm talking about indexing, which is a strategy. Basically, if you had $1 million in an indexed fund like the S&P 500 in 2008, you would have lost 400,000. Your million would have gone down to 600,000, and it took 4 years until the end of 2012 to make back what you lost. Our clients who had $1 million in an indexed insurance contract linked to the S&P 500 in 2008, they were cheering because they weren't losing anything. They said, go, go, because it went down. They didn't make much of anything, but they didn't lose. The first 90 days of 2009, most of them locked in gains of 16% tax-free after not losing a dime. At the end of 2012, many of them had $2 million to show for their million, where most Americans were barely getting back what they lost. This is huge. And so indexing simply means that if I have my money in an insurance contract, they're crediting me what is called the general account portfolio rate. That might be 4 or 5%. Let's say it's 5%, so they'll credit you 50 grand if you feel bearish about America. But knowing that 7 out of 10 years the market's going to be up, I usually link my returns to an index that they offer or indices. Let's just keep it simple. Let's say I link to the S&P 500. I am not authorizing the insurance company to take one dime of my $1 million of cash value in my policy and invest it in the S&P 500, the stock market. No, my million has to stay safe in the insurance company earning 5. What I'm doing is I'm relinquishing the for sure 5%. You can take that 5% interest on my million, and you don't have to hang on to it to credit it to me. I'm willing to give that up, but don't you dare risk my million. So take the 50,000 of interest and buy upside options in this S&P 500. And they're the number one purchaser of options in the world. They buy them hourly. So they do that. Now, they're off the hook because if I guess wrong and the economy crashes, I don't lose one dime of my million. The 50,000 of options expire, worthless, but I didn't lose. And Will Rogers once said people get more concerned about the return of their money so the return on their money when things get bad. But if the economy went up, the insurance company has that 50,000 of options that gives them the wherewithal to pay me 8%, 80 grand if the S&P went up 8. If it goes up 12, they'll pay me 120 grand. They may have to cap me based on the price of options, but the trade-off is if it goes down, I don't lose. Zero is my hero. And based upon actual historical performance, you should average around 9.6% rate of return. But even in the worst decade since the Great Depression, 2000 to 2010, where we had 5 down years and 5 up years, you would have averaged 7.23%. 5 years you earned 0. The other 5, you made money. You only capped out 2 of those years. You would have averaged 7.23%. Rule of 72, $1 million would have doubled to 2 million when most Americans didn't even have their million back yet. This is huge. So I overcome the negative impact of taxes, inflation, and market volatility by seizing 3 opportunities: switch to tax-free, link your returns to the things that inflate, and use indexing so you're immune from market volatility. It doesn't hurt you. What are the 3 greatest key elements of a prudent investment? It's liquidity, safety, and earning a predictable rate of return tax-free. And so those are the key elements. And the reason why I choose a laser fund is because I can access money anytime I need with an electronic funds transfer or phone call. I want to have my money be liquid. Number two, I want to have safety of my principal. And any year that I make money, I want that to become newly protected principal. I don't want to lose in future years money I made in previous years. That's called lock in and reset. And then I want to be able to earn a predictable rate of return. Some years, I might make 25% or 61%, but averaging, usually around 9.6%. But if you rebalance and diversify, you can bump that up to 11 and even 14% based on actual periods in American history clear back to the Great Depression. And so you want a predictable rate of return where you can maybe earn 11 and net 10. Okay, I can't guarantee that, but I'd rather earn 11 and net 10 after all costs and fees than have to earn 15 or 16% in a tax-deferred IRA or 401k invested in the market. That's risky. I have to earn 16 after paying tax and fees to net 10. No, I would rather earn 11 and net 10. And so that's why this is my favorite financial instrument, bar none. So liquidity, safety, earning predictable rates of return. What's the message here? If you have money trapped in an IRA or 401k, and your advisor is saying, hang in there, if you don't need the money yet, keep deferring, procrastinating, paying tax until you're age 72. And then if you don't need the money, take out RMDs. That is the worst advice, I think, that's given in America. No, explore a strategic rollout, not a rollover. You can read about it here in the book and study stories and examples of actual clients who we have rolled money out of their IRAs or 401ks, got the taxes over and done with, and repositioned the net after-tax money into laser funds. Many times as a tax strategist, I've offset the tax on the rollout by resurrecting new deductions. Basically, there's stories in here where I took a husband and wife, both school teachers. I saved them $250,000 of unnecessary tax. They ended up with $250,000 extra dollars, which they're able to do all kinds of things in their family bank. A real estate landlord, I was able to get $750,000 out of his IRAs or 401ks with no tax. And I was able to resurrect deductions, and he was able to earn 300% rates of return on all of his rental properties, on top of the rental income. Hello. I took one couple, both husband and wife were physicians. They had $4.6 million in IRAs or 401ks. Their advisor, when I calculated, you're going to pay about $2.3 million of unnecessary tax. Their advisor said, they can afford to pay $2.6 million of tax. I said, why don't we ask them? I said, I can't save you $2.6 million. You're too far into this. But I could save you $1.2 million. Would you like to save $1.2 million of unnecessary tax? They go, absolutely. We took that $1.2 million of otherwise payable tax, and that is funding $100,000 a year of tax-free cash flow for their family, for college, education, religious missions, military service, all kinds of things. They are so grateful for that. Most people, red-blooded Americans, they'll pay their fair share of tax. This couple did. But I redirected $1.2 million of otherwise payable tax to causes they supported. We do this all the time. I took a couple in California from the highest tax bracket in 5 years to a 0% tax bracket. They had $6 million accumulated. In a nutshell, over 5 years, they rolled out that money out of their IRAs or 401ks. They paid $2 million in tax, but they got it over and done with. They netted $4 million after tax. That $4 million in their laser funds has now doubled to $8 million. That $8 million is generating $600,000 to $800,000 a year of additional growth. They only need $300,000 to live on. But they now, they're in a 0% tax bracket. Some people are satisfied with 40 to 60% of their income not showing up on their 1040 tax return. That couple, they bit the bullet. The government was tickled for 5 years. They got this big windfall of tax revenue. But now they're tax-free. You can do this. So I would strongly recommend that you research these opportunities, that you don't miss out. It all begins, first of all, with studying this book. It's been flying off of our warehouse shelves. It's my 11th book. It's called The Laser Fund, How to Diversify and Create the Foundation for a Tax-Free Retirement. Make yourself immune from taxes, inflation, and market volatility, not outlive your money. And so this retails for $20 on Amazon plus shipping. I'll gift it to you free. Simply click on the link below and you contribute a nominal amount towards the shipping and handling. I require some skin in the game. I'll cover the rest of that cost and I'll pay for the book. I'll fire out a hard copy to you via priority mail. But when you're in there claiming this free copy, if you'd like to listen and learn or watch and learn like I do, check out those formats. There's even a masterclass in there where you can go into a real deep dive on these strategies, which may save you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Would that be worth it? We teach educational webinars on a regular basis. Those are free, but you can even schedule an appointment online for a quick consult with a certified IUL professional that can show you how these strategies may apply in your particular set of circumstances, okay? With no cost or obligation, because you want to make sure that it's done correctly. And I can point you to the creme de la creme who know how to do it right, because this is not about me. This is about you and your brighter future, so you will not outlive your money.